So my name is Jeffrey. I am a designer and writer and artist, and I work on the Umbrella Uprising projects as a chief editor. And I also organize exhibitions while I have time. So the Umbrella Uprising project started as a personal project where I archive artworks from the Hong Kong protests, and something that I find very impactful for me personally. And I started collecting these projects, these artworks, and then I started to notice I can narrate the story of the protest through these artworks. And so I added my writings. I sort of like designed a book from these artworks, and then decided to publish it as a project. So people from other places in the world can share these artworks and can view and can enjoy these artworks from this particular place or this particular event in Hong Kong. I write this book as a piece that narrates through the events. I try not to take any very extreme side of it, but I explain what happens on the day, and I share these artworks and sharing these artworks to show what happened that day, and the artwork will tell a story of how people react to a certain event, or how they experience that protest, or they draw illustrations of significant things that happened on that day, on those days. And I think that's a more neutral way to narrate through these events. I don't really have to take a side. I just need to tell the story using these artworks and not with my writings. It's certainly very noticeable when the protest started. It's very peaceful. It's very almost boring because there's millions of people on the street, but and everyone's are very peaceful about the whole process. But then things happen, and then you can sort of see how the events deteriorated, or how the protests got more aggressive over time on both sides, and I think there is a lot more emotions by the end of the book, where is 100 days of the protest, and you can see a lot of emotions throughout the protest. From the start, is almost very peaceful, very neutral, and it is starting to get very aggressive by the end. The aim for the book, for myself, I hope the viewer could see why it goes wrong, why the protest goes wrong in a way, and also that's something I really want to show the world through the arts, is that how people feel throughout this protest. And I think it's important for the viewers to see that side of the protest, because we read news about protesters, but we don't really realize what people think about the protests. It's very important to narrate the emotions behind them, and news or traditional media rarely covers these kind of aspects or perspective of a protest. So I think it's a very important voice that we need to cover. I think for the most part, some most traditional media like news, they cover a story and maybe on the factual level, but it's not factual, but arts also cover how people feel about this event, and that's also nowadays, because of social media, I think that's a very large aspect in traditional media, where media will cover a story if it's shocking enough, if a protester did something shocking, or if the police did something shocking, they will cover it, they will make it a big headline, things like that. It's all about the wow factor. But arts can convey a different aspects of a protest. For example, part of the book covers a very simple teacher protests where they protest for the students, like stop beating our children. Students shouldn't have to learn how to fight tear gas, things like that. And it's very simple messages and but a very powerful one, because these are not protesters that will get on to front pages, because it's just a bunch of very peaceful people talking about very peaceful things. And I think art and books like these can cover these aspects of a protest much better than traditional news can be. So I think it's very unique and important for that to do. So one of the biggest challenge throughout the process of making this book is to navigate through who can be trusted. So I've took a lot of time, and along with some other people, we collect a lot of artworks, but we want to make sure that these artworks are, we get the rights to publish these artworks, and it's also a very risky move, because it might expose some of the identities of these artists and things like that, and which might put them in danger. So we are very careful with the process, and we try not to leave much records if possible, so that through the process we can collect enough artwork to publish in our book and still protect these artists in case the government wants to go after them or things like that. So the second part of the challenges is during the process of distributing or printing and distributing the projects. Not a lot of printers are willing to take this project, and we decide midway through, especially with the COVID-19 situation, we decide we want to print in Hong Kong because it's easier and more. And due to a lot of printers being not available in the UK, so we decide to move our productions in Hong Kong. But also because of the political pressure, printing in Hong Kong is really difficult, and we found a printer which are very willing to help, but to this day I still have no idea who they are. I contact them through other parties, and it's a very secretive process, and also with the distributing, and we're dealing with thousands of address and numbers of Hong Kong people where they want to support the projects, and it's very important that we keep them safe, so that we want to make sure that every data is very secure only on our end, so that we don't have to encounter any sensitive situations throughout the process. But it took ages to set up that pipeline, and that's why the production deadline was set to be March and April, and it ended up being June and July. So it's a very tricky situation. So I would say artwork and creative works acts as a voice in people's opinions when it comes to political discussion, because when we think about political discussion, we think about like politics. We think about politicians talking to each other, but politicians only represent the people, and I think it's very important that people find a way to narrate through these events, or through artwork. They can express their emotions, they can express their opinion, they can express their way of life, or their feelings towards a certain event or a certain party. And I think in a political discussion is very lacking in, we don't really know how people think these days, except for looking at protest art and social media and things like that. And I think it has a very important role to play in a society where there is conflict, there is different perspective, and I think it's important that we see these views and these point of views. It's very, very fun to see people that were not that interested in political discussion before or social movement before would take part in contributing through art and through their own actions, and it's interesting to see individuals taking part of social movement through acting their talents or their using their own creative ways to contribute to this social movement, maybe solely because of what they can do, but like slowly a lot of these artists will turn to activists because of what they do during this time. And I think it's very valuable to see, say, dancer or performing artists or writers, illustrators starting to do more work about social movement, and then and the creative process of them is not just about themselves now, and it's about something bigger. And I think it's very encouraging to see how it all acts together. The social movement parts of a society, and artists, they all contribute to each other basically, and it's very encouraging to see. So we saw this project as an archival project, so we will continue to collect artworks for the Hong Kong protest now more than ever, since there is a bit of censorship going on in Hong Kong, where people want to voice their opinion using art. Their work might be taken off or deleted online. So I think it's extremely important for us to continue to archive this project, but also part of the Umbrella Uprising project is to promote these events through art to international audience. And this is something that we're still planning to do. As of now, the COVID-19 situation is still not easing as much, so we're still planning to see when we can organize exhibitions, but we are still working on the book and trying to get the book out as much as possible. So it's a very exciting year coming for artists and creators outside of Hong Kong, actually, for them to help out in this project, and it will be very encouraging to see and very exciting. The most important message I want to convey through this project is that it doesn't really matter where you came from, but you can take part in a social movement or a political event, like in your own way, through different paths, like through art and through something culture, read about something, is all contributing to a social movement, whether you notice it or not. And I think it's interesting to use through this book and through other arts, we can approach these international audience, events that they might not be aware of or might not care about, using these art and culture aspects of it. So I think it will be interesting to see. Flabbergasted by the amount of courage and creativity Hong Kongers possess throughout this protest, and even now, protest arts are being censored and banned, people still put up like completely blank protest headlines or things like that, or protest paper on the wall. We know what it means, and it's a very powerful thing about art, and it's about artists doing something, try to convey a message, and the receiver understands it on their own level. And I think it's something that I would love to keep seeing, and I do hope Hong Kongers could keep doing what they're doing. They're being really great about the whole protest, and I wish to see it continue safely, hopefully, but it's going well. for the most part. But yeah, I really hope that they continue the fight. So